What up, Metropolitans? On this edition of Mets Digest, it's spring training. Pitchers and catchers are reporting down in Florida as we speak. And even though the whole roster has a lot of questions surrounding them, especially when it comes to expectations, there is one person that may be the most critical when it comes to the Mets' future plan and strategy, and that man is Brandon Sproat. Yeah, we'll talk about that on this edition of Mets Digest. What's going on, everybody? Flobo Boyce with you, hanging with you, having a great time. It's February, which means that, it's spring training, but also the end of the football season. Super Bowl wrapped up yesterday as I record this. And of course, you have to deal with all the cringe we got next post social media teams are using. But that just means it's officially baseball season. Before I get into the top story, I just want to say if you're watching the channel right now, do me a favor, like the video, comment below, share the video with some friends, myself and Mike D'Angelo. We try to make this fun, try to put some information with some commentary, in my case, some comedy. Just make sure we have a good time. We're talking about the orange and blue. Like I said, spring training time, Port St. Lucie. I hadn't had a chance to go to spring training for a long time, but I'm kind of glad that it's a chance for me to maybe get some days off of my other job to make my way out there. If I do decide to make an official trip, I'll be sure to let you all know. But it's time for a fresh renewal. Last year, 2024, expectations were low, and of course, the Mets over-delivered. Yeah, you were there. This year, it's a little bit different. There's some parts that I would say the team looks strong, but you could always imagine that as a fan, we really want one more piece. The official spring training roster was released yesterday on social media channels and now is posted. You'll notice one notable omission is Pete Alonso because he hadn't been officially signed to the team. So there's a lot of options out there, a lot of invitees that we didn't think would probably make it, whether not through injury or whether they were ready or not. But it's really going to be a healthy mix and competition over the next couple weeks to make sure what our opening day roster is going to be. And of course, with that comes the bigger questions, right? That would be our rotation, how strong it's going to be. Is Jeff McNeil going to be the everyday second baseman? And, well, if Pete Alonso is back and he's going to be their first baseman, what does that look like for someone like Brett Beatty, who really doesn't have an assignment as I record this? But when you think about the future of the franchise, you think about the Dave Stearns philosophy, letting the kids play and giving opportunities for talents inside the farm system. And the Mets are kind of in the middle. I think they're ranked between 12th or 14th as far as strength of their farm system. Everyone is looking at Brandon Sproat, currently the top ranked Mets pitcher in the farm system. There is more than enough evidence that Mr. Sproat would find a way to be featured on the major league roster in the back half of the season if everything goes according to plan. And that has a lot of factors in there because, yes, the reclamation project situation with Frankie Montas or Clay Holmes, whether or not through high ERA and switching from being a reliever to a starter, is going to be something that has to play out in real time. Of course, you have to account for some injuries, and injuries is something we had in a long time. But just to give you a little bit of backstory about Sproat, he really was kind of the one we had pegged on this channel in the summertime, but everyone's pretty much been following him over the past year and a half. Will Salmon at The Athletic really talks about this. Quote, he says, the next wave of help from their farm system figures to include Brandon Sproat, of course, in addition to Don Hamill and Blake Tidwell. A starting trio expected in big league camp. Sproat should debut at some point in the second half of the season. Just in that, he'll start the year in AAA in that Syracuse, where he had a 7.53 ERA and 7 starts in 2024 for dominating the previous two levels within the same year. So was an ace in Brooklyn, did very, very well at AA and really struggled a bit in AAA, but still on pace to feature this year. And I know I said this is going to be one of the more critical players in camp, and I do mean that. But to get there, I want to say this. This one comes from Joe DeMayo, who really does a fantastic job in ranking the prospects and how they fit into the team overall. His lists are pretty much gospel when it comes to people in the inside. It says, the Mets organizational pitcher of the year, number 2 Mets prospect, that's behind Jet Williams. Brandon Sproat has excellent stuff with a fastball that sits in the mid-90s and can touch triple digits throughout the 2024 season, he scaled back his velocity as games went on. Sproat's best secondary offering is his changeup with a plus arm side fade. He also has a hard slider, cutter sweeper, and a curveball that is more of a get me over type of pitch. So young, throws hard, has lots of stuff. Book it. With some refinement, he can project as a number 2 type of starter, and I think he is not far off from reaching Queens. And we talked about that being the 2025 debut. We mentioned here is someone who's ranked highly in the organization, somebody who has a lot of the stuff and the pitch mix, and also is ready to go to the show. Now, why do I say this is so critical? Well, as I record this, up until last week, there was still some rumblings about whether or not the Mets can make a play for Dylan Cease, currently with the San Diego Padres. This will be amounted to a 1-year rental deal because he's still under contract with San Diego. Now, San Diego may be looking to do a fire sale. Without getting too much into it, there's a lot of strife going on with the ownership and their budgets. Pretty much, they have a lot of heavy contracts. They have to cut payroll. Dylan Cease could be part of some wholesale changes. But a couple days after Jim Duquette offered this bonkers theoretical trade, John Heyman over at the New York Post basically amounted to a rumor killer saying, I don't think the Mets are going to go that far for someone like Cease. And this is also underscored with David Stearns saying they were pretty much set. An amazing day. John Heyman writes, if the Mets are going to land Dylan Cease, the Padres targets likely include Brandon Sproat, Jet Williams, and Luis Angel Acuna. So we've seen Luis Angel last season. I'm telling you, Sproat would probably be a number 2 starter by some metric by the end of either this season or next season, and Jet Williams is number 1 ranked in the organization. Quote, the Mets wouldn't do a Sproat-Williams combo for Garrett Crochet, so no chance they'll do it for a rental. Sproat and Williams ended 2024 ranked as the top 2 prospects in the Mets farm system by MLB.com. And thanks to the Sports Not for the transliteration of that John Heyman post. So, you think about letting the kids play. Dylan Cease is still on the market, but the Mets aren't going to move with them. That means you believe what you have in your hand is better that we can go out and get. And, well, if you have someone who's ready to go to the show, theoretically, on the back half of the season, perhaps maybe quicker if some injuries come into play, or maybe even a little bit longer if the AAA assignment seems to be more challenging than we think. This is some person that really has to show and prove over the next couple of weeks. Can Brandon Sproat thrive in his first big league camp as we get into the whole St. Lucie vibe? And this is why if you are anywhere near Port St. Lucie or make the trip, it'd be a cool thing to see whether or not he is fit for the show. We already said he's starting in AAA, but if you have to find a way to come out to almost be a pitching reinforcement, especially in those long months where guys start to regress, so there's some tiredness happening, or maybe there's a little bit a need to put some pop in that rotation. Well, that's what you need, someone with that youth, that mix, and that willingness to gain some experience. But what say you? I know Dylan Cease looks attractive. It's not a bad deal to go for Dylan Cease, even though it would be a 1-year rental. Would you stay put? If this was a game of blackjack, theoretically, would you stand? Would you say, hey, look, I got what I got, I'm going to let it roll? Or would you say, hey, look, I was still trying to make the deal. You are the Mets. You have to go through Los Angeles. They have the Avengers. They are the Monstars. Why not get all the pieces you can? Or do you really trust that your kids are going to play? I don't know about you, but in Stearns we trust until otherwise noted. You let me know in the comments below because I'll be looking towards what Brandon Sproat's doing in this big league camp. That is for me on this edition of Mets Digest. My name is Flobo Boyce. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Again, myself and Mike D'Angelo, we're back all the time, updating you what's happening with the orange and blue. And, of course, until next time, it's LGM to the bitter end.